The accident happened May 28th of 2023. To be totally honest, I thought I was dying.
He broke his elbow. The elbow actually detached from his arm. His back, the laceration I believe is 16 inches. He had the 9 broken ribs. He had the pneumothorax. He had a collapsed lung and then a ruptured spleen.
Initial report that I was getting is he had a bad fall. He had a pretty bad laceration. He had several broken ribs. His elbow was severely fractured, and they thought that he may have some internal injuries as well.
I even said my goodbyes to my wife. I really thought that I was dying, and that's kind of how it, felt for me there. We went on vacation, my wife and I, with 4 other couples. A beautiful resort in Cabo. One of the couples rented a yacht. We were, well out to sea, and we were jumping, from the roof of the yacht into the water, several of us. And right before I jumped for the last time, one of my friends said, "Hey, no more jumping up top, it's getting too slippery." So I even took a towel and I said, "Okay, last jump." I was already up on the roof. And I wiped down the top, and it was the fiberglass, boat top, on the roof. And as I jumped, I slipped and fell approximately 24 feet.
He slipped and it threw his body towards where the propeller is in the back, and he ended up falling in scorpion, which if you don't know what a scorpion is, it's where the back of your head and the back of your heels touch. So you're basically completely bent in half, and that was over a railing. But as soon as he hit and then he flopped in the water, it was he was paralyzed. He was sinking. And as soon as they were able to lift him up out of the water, I looked at his back, and his whole back was filleted open like a fish, like if you were to gut a fish. And there was just blood everywhere.
The authorities there in Mexico brought what they call a medical speedboat out to sea to pick me up.
It was a very, very, very hard ride to get to where the ambulance was meeting us at a hospital, and just the ride alone, I believe, was 35 to 45 minutes, somewhere in there, and they were going fast. I mean, it's something like you see on a movie, this little speedboats, and you hit a wave and it's going up in the air. I mean, it was very hard, it was very rocky, and I mean, they did the best they could, to get us to the hospital. By the time we ended up, like I said, getting to the EMT, where the EMT ambulance met us, they wanted actually to take us to just a regular hospital. And Matt was adamant about, no, I need to go to a trauma center. So he was talking Spanish to one of our friends, and the EMT driver said, no, it's gonna be an extra, too much money or too much in gas. And I'm like, I don't care how much it costs. Money's not an object. You take him where he needs to go, period. While I was on the ambulance, I'm sitting next to him, and he is looking up, and the first thing he said is, "Call my dad, tell him to get me out of here." And his dad's obviously a retired fireman. So, and when he said that, I already knew without him telling me that he was call the relief, we need to get it. But he knew that I didn't really probably know necessarily who to contact, with the Relief Association, because at that time I didn't. I knew we had the Relief Association, we've always paid into it, but I didn't know really who to contact. So his dad kind of set everything in motion and called whoever he needed to call. Somehow he got through to Chris Stine, and then from there I was on the phone pretty much immediately when we got into the hospital with Chris.
I'll never forget the call that came in. It came in over the Memorial Day weekend. It was on Friday evening at 8:30 p.m. You can imagine it's on a holiday weekend, and trying to get somebody home from out of the country is not an easy task to do. What we were trying to understand is that how bad is Matt? Can he be stabilized to a point where we can get him back to the United States? That took a little time to figure that out. And so we started making phone calls to our vendors that we use for air ambulance to try and find out, is one available? And so we ended up finding an air ambulance that would fly him out, but they couldn't do it till the next morning or the next day. And so in the meantime, Matt's injuries have been updated. He does have more extensive injuries, but they did stabilize him to a point where the doctors in Mexico are approved or let us know that it was okay to fly him. So the coordination that has to happen to do that is pretty extensive. One, the hospital in Mexico has to release Matt to fly. The air ambulance has to obviously agree to fly him, and then we have to have a receiving hospital in the United States that's willing to receive Matt based on the injuries he has. And so we have to provide that documentation to the receiving hospital, and then we have to find some ground transportation as well to take him from the hospital to the airstrip in Mexico, and then from the airstrip in San Diego to the hospital. And so it took us a little time to get those things coordinated, to get approval. The whole time I'm speaking to one of Matt's really good friends. I'm also had the opportunity to speak to Matt directly and also Jamie, his wife, as well, just to let them know we were going to do everything we possibly could to get Matt home safely. And we were working around the clock over that entire weekend, over Memorial Weekend. We were working all day and into the night to coordinate all this.
Obviously, insurance was an issue because in Mexico they want to get paid and they want to get paid up front. Right when we checked in, the ambulance driver was coming up to try to get me to pay him. Of course, all the receipts and everything are, in Spanish, so I can't, see what it says. So I'm just trying to give my card out. My card's getting declined because it's a, absurd amount. I believe it was on a Sunday. Then Monday was a holiday because it was Memorial Day. So in between that time, how Chris came into play is Michael, our friend, and the one that was with Matt and I, ended up talking to him. Basically, Michael was telling Chris that Matt needs to get out of here. We need to go home. Basically, whatever it's going to cost, whatever we need to do, they're going to cover it. Just basically get Matt home. Because I said, we need to get this plane, and we don't care if we have to pay out of pocket, this and that. And he said, normally it could happen a lot quicker, but because it fell, 1, because it was in Mexico, 2, it fell on a Sunday, and 3, the next day was the holiday. He goes, if we wait for insurance, he goes, for everything to kick through, he goes, this could take a couple days, to a week for you to be in Mexico. And I'm like, no, we don't have time. He goes, if you guys have the funds and can pay up front, he goes, do that if you can. He goes, and by the grace of God, we did. So we paid up front. He goes, I will get you guys 100% reimbursed, and we've been reimbursed every penny.
So we had to come out of pocket, I want to say, I think close to $70,000 total. The speedboat, the ambulance from the marina to the hospital stay in Mexico, the ambulance from the hospital to the airfield. I think it was roughly about $70,000, and the Relief Association, fully refunded us. And then while I was off, burning my own sick time, depleting all the way down to 0%. It's amazing how quick, the sick time goes when every shift you're taking off. I had 700 and something hours, and that quickly depleted. And the Relief Association making up the difference, and just making sure the members are taken care of. I can't say enough, just great things about the Relief Association, Chris Stine in general, and the entire staff.
He did a ton of therapies that our insurance completely covered in the Relief Association. So he was going 3 or 4 days a week to physical therapy, and then he was also going to another person for occupational therapy. So he was going to 2 different therapies. On top of that, he was going to a chiropractor 2 to 3 days a week. He was getting massages. He was doing all the things that you could possibly do. And we never had to pay anything out of pocket. It was always just a $15 copay. So that was amazing, because you're going to the top people and the top doctors and facilities and not really having to pay a dime.
We have PPO, and it was you basically pick your doctor, highest level doctor, and you have your appointment. And it's covered. You pay a small copay of $15, and you get the highest treatment that's there. The highest treatment out there is what you get. The accident happened May 28th of 2023, and I was off 8 months. I returned January 19th of 2024. There was a time that I was off that my hand wasn't working. Basically from my elbow down was dead, non-functioning, frustrating. Went through that period of time of just, hey, this might be it for me. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to return. And I just kept going to therapy and appointments and doing everything I can. Just was so anxious to get back to the fire station and get back to my routine. Honestly, I didn't know that I was going to be okay until I seen the American people come pick me up in Mexico on the airfield. That's kind of when I broke down, and I knew everything was going to be okay. In Mexico, I was worried not only for myself. That was the last thing I was really worried about. I was worried about my wife. Being there in a hospital, in a setting that made me really nervous, in and out of the room, the language barrier. She's on the phone with Chris Stine, with other people trying to orchestrate me getting back home, and that was my main concern there. I didn't know how I was going to be. I knew I had a chest tube sticking out of me, pain in my arm. They were giving me much pain medicine as they could. They wanted to do the surgery on my arm in Mexico, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure we got that surgery done, in the United States. I can't say enough good things about Chris Stine and the Relief Association as a whole, just how they took care of me, how they took care of Jamie, my wife. We were in the hospital maybe a few hours before connection between Jamie and Chris was happening, and he did everything in his power to get me out of there, as quickly as possible.
By the time, from when Matt crossed the threshold in Cabo San Lucas's ER to the time he crossed the threshold at Scripps Hospital in San Diego, was where he went, it was less than 48 hours. And so there's no other medical plan anywhere that could have that kind of service that could bring your member home and do it in that amount of time. There's just no place that would do that. Over the weekend, those circumstances. And so to get him back in the United States to get treatment was a huge success for us. And the reason why it was a success is when he arrived in San Diego, the doctors found a lot more injuries that they didn't catch while he was in Mexico. And if those injuries would not have been addressed, it would have been very tough for Matt to survive some of these injuries. The end result is he got the treatment he needed, and he got the care that he would be accustomed to receiving from LAFRA. If you're a relief member, you should have whoever the relief president is at that time on speed dial on your phone. We hope that those situations don't happen to you, but if they do, again, to have peace of mind that you can call somebody, 24 hours a day, and when you need help, and we can start getting those things started is unbelievable. There's no other plan that would match that.
As soon as I knew Chris was the guy to talk to, it was like, it didn't matter if it was 2 o'clock in the morning, I could call him, and he'd pick up, and it was good. If Matt wasn't a fireman and we didn't have the Relief Association, I just don't know if that would have happened to a normal person. Like, they would be dead, just to be honest. Like, he wouldn't have survived. And just a normal person, an everyday job, like a normal, blue collar person, they don't have the things that, your insurance covers. They don't have something like the Relief Association. And that saved his life.